All right, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good night. Welcome to another episode of the Green Room. Super excited to have a special guest in the house. Before we jump into Anthony Culver's intro, though, I want to just give an overview of what the Green Room is if you're rocking with us for the first time. This is a conversation series that's an extension of a project that we did at the Stanford Design School, a class called Community College with the subheading of Designing Black and Brown Spaces. So in this Green Room conversation series, we're talking to creatives from all different walks of life and understanding their journeys, their triumphs and successes, but then also some of the rough spots and the potholes they might have stepped in and the banana peels they might have slipped on, just so that the community who's going to watch this will have some insights and some lessons in their back pocket as they navigate their own life. So hopefully this will be helpful for anybody watching and tuning into this. And with that, I want to hand it over to my good friend, Tony Culver, to do a little bit of an intro. Tony, tell him, what you're working on and what you're passionate about, where in the world you are, and just a little bit of an overview. Feel free to take, 3, 4, or 5 minutes.
Cool. I ain't got that much to say, but hey, y'all, I'm Anthony, Anthony Culver. I am a software engineer, currently working at Netflix. I'm right outside of Atlanta. I'm a dad, a husband, a friend, like everybody else, just trying to get through this year. Keeping my sanity intact. Um, yeah, that's about it right now, and it's a lot going on, and also not much going on. I think you can kind of relate to that. It feels very much like Groundhog Day right now. So
Absolutely, man. And just so while we're on the record, I have to compliment that sweatshirt. For everybody watching, I don't know how you can get your hands on that, but I just have to shout out that that's dope and salute that.
I can't take credit for it. I just saw it and bought it. So
Yeah, yeah. Go out there and support your local small and medium businesses. Help get this economy moving back in the right direction. Um, Maybe we start with just like a self care question, like how are you? How's the family? What's it like in Atlanta? I know I'm in California and we have restrictions and different things happening. But then when I turn on the news, different parts of the country are doing things a little bit different. So give the people a little bit of an overview of how it's going down where you're at.
it's a little bit different out here, man. People are a lot more relaxed in terms of a lot of the precautions that they're taking. It's been interesting, like seeing how things have changed. Earlier in the pandemic, everything kind of shut down. There was all this uncertainty, but a lot of stores were still open and people were still out shopping, right? Like people were kind of stuck in the house. So it's like, all right, now I'm going to do all these home improvement projects. And so, like, you drive past Home Depot and the parking lot's full, and, it's like a line of 50 people outside. And, that was still a thing, right? It was, certain places, Home Depot, Target, drive throughs at like Starbucks and stuff like that, right? Like, and you can tell these are people that are not affected by everything that's going on right now. They're just, this is an inconvenience for them, and they're just kind of shifting their focus right now. But now, it's a little bit different. You do see a lot of people walking around wearing masks, but you see a lot of people without them, and you see a lot of people just kind of congregating and hanging out and having parties at home, and um, doing a lot of things that is we've been advised not to do. Um, but I think as time progresses, you're going to start seeing a lot more of that. Um, just because people are tired and people are exhausted, and they're just kind of fed up. I think there's some people that are going to be at a breaking point. It's and again, there are different levels of privilege even in this pandemic, right? Like I can say those things right now, and I can look at people and say, well, why would you risk going out and having people over to your house and stuff? But I got a house full of people. I'm not by myself. I'm not experiencing that loneliness and that isolation that some people are. So, um, On one hand, I understand it, but at the same time, you have to think about how what you're doing can impact other people.
Yeah. I think that grace is important to understand that like the holidays for a lot of people are a great time, the music, the food, the gifts.
Mhm.
Then at other time, if you lost somebody to COVID this year, and that person is not going to be a part of your tradition, that you've had for all these years, it could be a really lonely or really sad time. So, on the one hand, I feel you, like grace and compassion for people that have just gone through the worst maybe year of their lives. And then on the other hand, the safety side of it that says, hey, although I do have compassion for you, like coming into close proximity with you or doing some things that might put my own family at risk, might have to not go down at least for another couple of months before we get vaccines and all this other stuff. So that's a great point that you raise. Um, maybe to take the people backwards a little bit, you mentioned, software engineering right now at Netflix. Um, did you always know you wanted to be a software engineer? Like how did you start your technical path, or just take us back to some of your early influences to start to get to where you are today?
Yeah, it's funny. Like as a kid, people always ask you, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And like you get the typical doctor, lawyer,
Mhm.
policeman, firefighter kind of responses, right? And I always thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And then when I was in high school, I realized how long I was gonna have to be in school to do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, I'm not I'm not gonna be in college that long. So um it was interesting. My stepfather at the time, I think it was my like freshman year of high school, bought a computer.
Hmm.
And this was what, 98? Yeah, 98. And it was just becoming a thing, like a really common thing for people to have relatively powerful computers.
Yeah.
He was the type of person that, I don't know anything about this, but I'm bringing it into my house, so I need to know everything about it.
Yeah.
So he started like building computers and doing all this crazy stuff. And so I kind of got into some of that with him,
Hmm.
and that's kind of where it piqued my interest. But I really had no idea what I was doing, what I was getting myself into. I was like, I'm gonna go to school for computer science, and I'm gonna do whatever, right? And for me, it was a way to make good money, have a
Hmm.
stable career, and not have to be in school forever.
Yeah.
Um, but I did not really understand how college worked. It was just kind of understood that that was the next step, right? Like both my parents went to college, so it was not a there was no discussion about like, are you going to go to college? It was, when are you going to start visiting schools? So I I kind of thought I was going to follow the template, the blueprint that I had seen all throughout my life, where I go to class, they tell me what I need to know, I do the homework, I take the test, and I'm good, right? And I'm sure you understand this. College does not work that way.
Not at all.
So I struggled, and I was going through a lot of stuff in college too. I wasn't happy, and again was struggling. It was the first time I really struggled with school,
Hmm.
and for most of my life, that was the thing that I was good at,
Yep.
and having to, I tell people a lot of times I had to learn how to learn.
Yep.
And because you go to college, nobody's going to just spoon feed you information. It's like, here are the topics we're going to cover, go read about it, go learn it, go practice it, go figure it out, and then come back and we'll see what you learned, right?
Hmm.
And it took me a while to get that. um, but I also didn't like where I was. I know you went to U of I as well. um, and it wasn't for me. Like I really wanted to feel like I was going away from home.
Yeah.
And I was close to home. There were so many people that I knew there.
Yeah.
um, and I really wanted a different experience. And it just, like I said, I wasn't happy. So I transferred to Clark Atlanta,
Hmm.
and I finished up down here, and it was great for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I think personally, just getting away from everything that was comfortable and everything that I had known. Because you know you're around your family and your friends, people you've known forever, and people that have a lot of the same experiences as you, and you start to kind of adopt that same way of thinking.
Yeah.
And so being away from all of that and being on my own kind of forced me to grow up and start to really think about who I was as a person. But from a technical standpoint, when I transferred to Clark, they wouldn't take any of my major classes. So
Oh,
none of my core classes were there. So I was, you know, second and third year student in a CS 100 class where like we're not writing code at all. We're just doing pseudocode the entire semester.
yeah.
And but for me, it was some of the concepts that I was still kind of not really solid with. I was able to pick up on those and grasp those a little better because I was able to help people that were just starting.
Yeah.
And you know, they would say you learn more by teaching,
Mhm.
and that's definitely true. I was able to help a lot of people with things that I already knew, and certain things just started to click. Um, and so that that helped me, but I was also like, again, being a transfer student, I wasn't eligible for scholarships or anything like that, so I was working a lot.
Yeah.
And my I remember one of my professors was always pushing me to do more, right? You say, here's the project, here's your assignment, go do this. I would do it and turn it in, and she would say, this is great, but you know, you got a week left before this is due. Why don't you go take it a step further? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And I'm like, I did what you asked me to do. I'm
Oh,
tired. I
lady.
had to work. Right. Like, leave me alone. This is what you asked for. Um, but looking back on it, I wish I had done some of that stuff.
Mm.
Because I would be a much better engineer than I am right now. I'd probably be a lot further along in my career. But you know that's another one of the things about going to an HBCU is it's a different environment and everybody is like really genuinely investing in your success. Like they want to see you succeed and they're going to push you to do better and to be the best that you can. And I think that was something that I didn't know I needed, but I definitely needed that at the time.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said a bunch there about learning how to learn, about getting into uncomfortable circumstances so that you can kind of grow and be a little bit more independent minded. And then that sense of community coming out of a HBCU where they really were invested in your success, come from the same culture, want to see us win at all costs. How's it been to kind of be a brown person in technology, maybe like post college, like you learned the stuff you needed to learn, maybe that first couple of junior level jobs and then rising through the ranks? Like, you feel like companies have vested interest in like making you feel at home and be successful, or like what's the experience been kind of outside of the college realm?
Man, we could spend a whole day talking about that. It's an experience, man. And again, it's something that I was not prepared for at all. And it's one of the reasons I'm very big on mentoring and giving back and just having those very candid discussions about what it's like to work in this field because you know it's a space that was not it's not designed for us. There's still a lot of people that kind of have this gatekeeper mentality like this is my place, this is my industry, this is my company, you don't belong here kind of thing. So um you know there's a lot of things going on, you know. For one, like I said, just not being prepared, right? It's the world is very different now than when our parents were our age, right? And you know, I think my dad is probably the only adult that I knew growing up that worked in corporate America.
Mhm.
Um, and he spent his whole career there. He was an executive at like Toyota Lexus for almost 30 years. Um, and he was able to teach me a lot from his experience, right? But his experience is very different than what it's like now. You know, corporate America is different now, but also going into this software engineering field, it's nothing like anything else that people have seen before because we're working with technologies and we're working in a world that just nothing like this existed, you know, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, so there's only so much that he could really guide me with. And there are a lot of mistakes that I made. Like I didn't know, you know, kind of with having the mentality from our parents' generation is you find a big stable company, you find something secure and you stay there for a long time, right? And so it took me a while to find a job that I really enjoyed. So I moved around like every, year and a half, 2 years, and I felt really self-conscious about that. Like I felt like I wasn't going to be able to get another job because people were going to be asking, "Why are you leaving? Why are you leaving? You haven't spent that much time there." But that's okay, right? Is this That's something that's very common in this industry. And actually, 2 years at a company is you're considered being there too long sometimes. So learning little things like that, understanding how to negotiate salary, understanding what is a reasonable salary for my skill set and for different job titles and different industries, different companies. Those things are difficult. But even all that aside, you get a foot in the door, you get a job, um, and then it's a whole nother experience, right? Like you are, uh, there's nobody around you that looks like you, right? I was probably 12 years into my career before I was anywhere where I saw a significant number of Black software engineers. Like up to that point, I think I had met three in my entire career.
Mm.
Never actually worked with one. I
Yeah.
just I'd encountered them in various places, but and that when there's nobody like you around, people start to question whether or not you should be there or why you're there, and you kind of excuse me, get into this mentality of constantly having to feel like you have to prove yourself.
Mhm.
Um, even though you go through this super like long, intense, grueling interview process and you get the job, and then as soon as you get there, even if it's subconscious, you are just like constantly trying to prove to other people that you belong there.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm at a point now where like I've gotten comfortable and confident in my skill set and what I'm capable of, to where I'm not doing that, at least not as much, or at least not that I'm aware of. But um, it's and kind of what you mentioned, the community, like finding that community is so important, because you need to be able to talk to other people that are experiencing the things that you're experiencing the way that you're experiencing them, right? Like I I could have a very close friend that's a woman in this field, but even if it's a black woman, like there's certain things that we're both going to experience as black people, but I'm never going to understand things from the perspective of a woman. And so like she has to go find her community of women that can kind of help her and support her. Um, so it's that's something I didn't realize until relatively recently that was really important. But that's why I think programs like what you're doing with community college are so important and so necessary right now, because that's how we start to help each other to grow and succeed in spaces that really weren't built for us.
Yeah. I've seen this arc of like a democratization of one, information, right? You don't necessarily have to go to a 4-year degree granting institution to learn all the stuff that, a decade or 2 decades ago you used to have to go for that. And then two, like once you do get in the door, um, for me being like the one or the only person in an electrical engineering degree program, like I started to get comfortable even in college of just like, well, look to the left, look to the right. It's just going to be me in here. Find a community of folks that are not maybe black people, but other people who are willing to partner up with me on projects and help me out, and then vice versa. And then in the interim time, we could chat about culture and upbringing and holidays and dress and all different music. So it was a good training ground for me to understand that that would be necessary, when landing my first tech job. Um, but yeah, the HBCU kind of perspective that you have, and the experience of kind of being in a class with probably a lot more black people and brown people than what I had is something that I lightweight am jealous of, because I'm like, man, I never got the opportunity to interface with as many of my own people as I would have liked to. So now these days, it's more about buying a bunch of Audible books to understand our history in this country, a bunch of books and documentaries about Africa and just the history that you've been taught in school versus like what you find out as you get older and get more curious about these things. You're like, oh, they're not exactly the same. So, um, have you had any of those kind of like aha moments as you've gotten older, whether it pertains to like parenthood or whether it pertains to just like putting two and two together, where some premises and propositions that you had early on didn't all the way hold up as you got into kind of where you are today?
Uh, yeah, a little bit, but again, I think that's more. It's more a product of the world that we live in being so different than it was when we were growing up. Just thinking about little things like how much time I spent outside playing as a kid. Um, and I look at my kids now, and I'm like, there's no way in the world I'm going to let them go outside without being there, And eventually it'll get to a point where they're old enough where I have to do that, right? But um, I think about how me and my friends, we would just be all over the neighborhood doing everything, but we grew up in a different community. Like our community was mostly black, and all of our neighbors, our parents' friends, or our friends' parents, like they all knew each other, right? And everybody was looking out for each other. And like you might be 3 blocks away from your house, but you better not be acting up because somebody's gonna see you and it's gonna get back to
Right.
your parents. Um, and like it's funny, like those types of neighborhoods don't really exist anymore. Like they're there, but not to the extent of what they used to be. And it's kind of scary as a parent, just knowing that um a lot of what we kind of got from our parents raising us is not going to apply to our kids, and it's kind of like going into this blind. Even with social media, right? Like I we're in this weird generation where it's like we know what life was like before the internet and before social media, but we were also kind of like the early adopters of it.
Mhm.
And I did a lot of crazy stuff in college, but I didn't have to worry about somebody posting it on Instagram, right? Like nobody was recording anything. People didn't have their phones out all the time. Smartphones weren't a thing. Like that wasn't something that I had to be concerned about. And it's like now you have to be concerned about that like when your kids are in junior high, and there's this balance of kind of shielding them from that world, but also trying to prepare them for how to engage in that stuff responsibly and understanding like the long-term consequences. But you still want them to be kids, right? You want them to go and do stupid stuff and be, responsibly reckless, so to speak, and have those experiences. But the stakes are a little bit higher now because again, the world is different. So,
Yes. So with that said, then, do you have hope for kind of us as humans getting to kind of a balanced future, or is it too cloudy right now for you to have a good signal for like feeling good about it for your kids?
I have a lot more hope in these future generations than I do in our generation. Um, Mostly just because they have a more they see more of the world, so to speak. Granted, it's not always the best view of the world when you're talking about seeing things online and social media and stuff like that, just because of biases and capitalism and whatnot. But they still see a lot more and they're open to a lot more. Um, and there's just this general sense of creating more of a level playing field on a number of different levels. And I think once we start to see more people in positions of power that have those that type of mentality and those values, I think we'll start to see a difference. So I'm hopeful. You know, there's only so much I can do, right? Like you try to raise your children and you know, talk to people and leave whatever wisdom you think is best, right? And kind of share from your experiences, and they're gonna do with that what they will. It's not gonna necessarily be what you want to happen, but you can only do what you can do.
Yeah, facts. I know my dad gave me a talk when I was 18. Like, we've done the best we can with you. God speed, God be with you, God keep you. Like, as you go to college, like, you're leaving our roof, and we're hoping that the deposit that's inside of you will help shield you from a lot of the foolishness, and like will help sustain you into adulthood. But like, we're moving from your parent tell you what to do to your like parent like advisor. Like, we're trying to give you our thoughts, but ultimately the decision is going to be up to you. So um, to the extent that that conversation is happening a little bit earlier now, because kids have all these spaces where they do stuff, and it's just going to be there, forever, because of um, kind of how social media and like how technology works. That's an interesting concept for all the parents and all the guardians to think about these days. So, yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for your thoughts on that, man. I
no,
know we're about at,
definitely.
at, at halftime, so maybe we switch it up a little bit and do um, let's do a little bit of a lightning round to talk about just some fun facts about Anthony. Um, what's the last thing that made you laugh out loud, if you can remember?
Oh man. Um, Last thing that made me laugh out loud. It was it was a meme with the like the woman. I forgot where it came from, but the woman is like yelling at the cat,
Uh-huh.
and oh man, I cannot remember what it was because I just saw it this morning and I just like laughed hysterically for like 5 minutes. Um, oh, it was about the election.
Okay.
And like they had the woman was pointing and said something about like we're gonna win whatever or whatever, and the cat had on the little kente cloth hat and was like, "How you gonna win when you ain't right within?" It was like a super corny joke, but for whatever reason, I just laughed for like 5 minutes straight.
I love that. I haven't seen it, but for anybody that's watching, if you're trying to get into the software or tech industry, some comic relief part of that culture is like scrolling your company's memes. I'm hoping y'all have a robust
Yeah.
Slack channel of Netflix memes and like all the stuff that makes you smile as you're doing your technical work.
Oh yeah, man. People putting like custom emojis in Slack that are just ridiculous. So it's always something, man. It's good when you can have fun at work like that. You know, you spend more time at work than you do with your family,
Yeah.
or just really outside of work, really. So it's always good when you can enjoy that time and laugh and take breaks occasionally. So
Yeah. So to that point about like doing a little bit of kickback, any books or podcasts or kind of resources that you like to? I'm assuming you probably got Netflix shows that you check out just by being a worker there. What do you do to kind of relax and just chill out with your family or by yourself when you get some free time?
um, for me, it's really just completely disconnecting.
Mm,
Especially from work, right? Like sometimes I'll take a day off to just be by myself, right? Like I'll just go hide in the basement and play Xbox and whatever, right? I'll do that for a while. Sometimes it's, you know, I go through busy periods and I feel like I haven't spent enough time with my kids. So I'll take time off and just hang out with them. Sometimes it's taking time off to do stuff around the house.
yeah,
But really it's just completely disconnecting, and having time where I'm not like just like on. Like, you know, sometimes you get into this mode where you just feel like you're on all the time, especially now with being home, where it's like I wake up in the morning, you know, the kids are there, they're awake before I am. So it's just like, ah, you're awake, daddy's awake, ah. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, you know, eat breakfast and get them settled. And then I start working. And then you're just on all day while you're working. And then as soon as you're done working, it's back in family mode, right? Like that was the thing that I didn't realize my commute was actually beneficial. It was just, you know, I'm sitting in the car for an hour every day, but like that was my time to decompress, you know, like switching gears from work at home. Um, but right now, man, it's just music. I've been at least trying to play a little bit more video games, just to kind of get that distraction. Catching up on a lot of shows that I just have not had time to watch before.
Yeah.
Um, so that's pretty much it right now. You know, we're taking the kids outside and letting them play and stuff, but it's starting to get a little cold. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, trying to figure out what to do with them in the house.
Yeah. Give me two or three titles kind of on the Xbox and gaming side, and then maybe two or three shows that you're checking into on the Netflix side.
All right. See, games. I'm catching up on stuff that I never finished. So playing Assassin's Creed Syndicate right now.
Mhm.
Trying to finish up Mafia 3,
Mhm.
Red Dead Redemption 2, and then like I'm always playing like 2K and Madden or something like that. So um, my kids are kind of into video games now, so I've been playing like Super Smash Brothers with them on the Switch. They've been playing Let's Go Pikachu.
Mhm.
So I usually try to just watch that. But in terms of shows, um, see on Netflix. I actually haven't finished the last two seasons of BoJack Horseman. That's like one of my favorite shows. Um, so finishing that up. Mostly been going back and watching like older shows. So
Yeah.
like my wife started watching Weeds a while ago, and
Yeah.
so I kind of like I wasn't really into that, but like she got me into it.
Mhm.
So been kind of binge watching that. Um, you know, I watch stuff outside of Netflix too. Like I'm not that hardcore uh guy. Like I work for Netflix, I can only watch Netflix. But um, actually just watched C on Apple TV.
Mhm.
And then kids are really into like Marvel stuff, so we watch some of that on Disney Plus every now and then. Yeah.
Super dope. Super dope. Let's jump into maybe sports. I know that you mentioned 2K and Madden, football and basketball. Any commentary on the upcoming NBA season or any favorite NFL teams that you watch and that you're a fan of?
Uh, you know, from Chicago, man, I'm gonna be a Bears fan for life. It doesn't matter how terrible they are, how difficult it is being a fan. Um, but you know that situation is what it is right now. I'm actually looking forward to this upcoming NBA season though. I'm curious to see how the bubble works this
Mhm.
year. Because you know, like the when they finished the last season, it was just like the playoff contenders, and not you didn't have as many people there, so it's a little bit easier to manage. But I'm curious to see how that works. I'm curious to see if this is going to be the year that just Harden implodes
Yeah.
and the organization just falls apart around him. um, but you know, I'm looking forward to it because like when they finished up the last season in the bubble, it was just some great basketball being played. I don't know what was different for them if you know if you take away the distractions and they're just focused on the game or what, but um, there was some really good basketball last season, so I'm hoping that continues this year.
Yeah, I was floored by Jamal Murray's play and Damian Lillard's play last year. Like these guys are playing like Marvel superheroes right now.
I'm just like, man, why weren't y'all doing this last year?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
So
it's gonna be fun to watch. So.
So maybe the last lightning round thing I'll jump into, maybe two more things. I respected the hoodie live, but maybe coming from the state of Illinois where Jordans are a big thing, are you into the sneaker game or a fan of any brands? On the, it's kind of two sides, right? Because people are in the house, and I'm like, well, they're probably not buying so much stuff, but then maybe you're doing that to make yourself feel better. So, give us a little bit on the fashion side in the sneaker game.
Man, I am not the person to talk to about that. I, it's funny. I used to
Yeah.
like when we were in high school. I had probably 40 pairs of shoes,
Mm,
and I would buy shoes and clothes like almost every week.
yeah.
Um, but now it's just like I'd rather spend that money on stuff for my house, like or like stuff for my kids, Like I've gone to a very simplistic life. I wear pretty much t-shirts and hoodies almost every day now.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm all about being comfortable now, especially that I'm in the house all the time. And I was talking to somebody the other day. I had like towards the beginning of quarantine, I don't know why, but I started like buying shoes and like clothes and stuff. And I was just like, why am I doing this? I'm not going anywhere. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in the house. But I had a lot of travel planned for this year, like a lot of tech conferences I was planning to go to, people I was planning to visit, and all of that just kind of fell apart. So um, yeah, I'm not really investing in a lot of fashion right now.
Yeah. On that particular point, you made me think of, once you get the bag at a company and you start to make some decent money, like all the stuff that you might have done from a conspicuous consumption state of mind, like back in the earlier days, you start to think about like wealth building and like legacy for your children and that kind of thing. Any insights or things that you've learned or started to focus on as it pertains to like investing your current salary and take home and like trying to turn that into something cool for you, for the next generation?
Yeah, definitely. I'm really just starting to kind of learn a little bit more about the stock market and investing in that sense. Um, but also, you know, having a little bit of a higher salary now, it gives me some more flexibility in terms of how I save for retirement. Like that's something that I'm looking at now, right? And it's your priority shift as you get older and your life changes. And I got kids and I'm trying to save for them, for if they want to go to college, or when they're on their own, if I want to help them buy a house, or paying for my daughter's wedding and things like that, like saving for them, but then also saving for retirement and like the kind of life that I want to live when I'm done. And so having, I think for me it's been more about understanding that you need to go beyond just like the one thing that you see in front of you, right? Like people are like, oh, you should save money, and the company has a 401k, put money in your 401k. And it's like, okay, well, like you can only save so much in a
Yep.
401k every year. And like once you get to the point where you have kind of maxed that out, then where you go from there, right? And just again having that community, right? And having people to teach you those things and tell you those things and show you what they're doing, um, introducing you to people, sharing their, like if they have a financial advisor that they trust, it's been really helpful for them, passing that information along, just kind of getting more into that, and understanding like doing this one thing is not enough. And then for me, it's I kind of have to look at that from a different angle, because my wife stays home with our kids. So it's like I'm not saving for retirement for one person; I'm saving for two people, right? So you kind of have to look at everything like, can I double this, right? So it's that's something that's fairly new for me. There's a lot of stuff that I I knew about that I just couldn't do, right? Because just being real, like my wife and I, we had we've been through some rough patches financially,
Mm.
um, and we're in a good place now. We have the ability and the means to do a little more in terms of preparing for the future.
Mhm.
Um, but again, that's one of those things, just being able to take those lessons learned and pass those on to other people. I do love that I'm seeing more people earlier in their careers thinking about that and having those conversations now. But it's also one of the reasons why I encourage people to look at trying to get into this field and into this industry, because um, it's no secret that software engineers tend to make more money than people in other fields, and especially for Black folks and people in our community, it opens a lot of doors that historically we haven't had access to. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's a lot about the whole point of these conversations. Like I reflect on how many people that I knew about that had parents who were in corporate America, or who had the access to even know about some of these things that we're talking about right now. And you get left feeling like, oh, I'm going to be the first and the only in my community to know about this. So after I scrape my knees and bump my head and do all this stuff, like let me at least, talk to the folks who are 20 something right now or in their teens getting ready for college and the next step right now, so that I could be the one who took the bullet for everybody else. Because it's like you said, it's a lot of money to be made in the technology industry. Um, we don't have as much of a green book or like a roadmap for people to make it through in mass. But if we can use the technology and tools that are there, and make ourselves available for the next generation to say, hey, if you're interested in this, there's a lot of promise. If you got to stick with it, you're gonna fail a lot, but as long as you get up more times than you get knocked down, then you'll be all right. So, um,
exactly.
yeah. Maybe the last thing, I know I took a tangent on that one. Last lightning round question I'll ask is about just travel, like coolest places that you've been, or like maybe places that are on your bucket list for to take your family or just to kind of check out for yourself. Any of those?
Yeah. So I think one of the places that I was hearing people always talk about taking their kids to Disney, right? And we haven't done that yet because our kids were kind of young, and we're not going to spend all this money to go down there, and they're not going to remember it. Um, so definitely want to take them there, but um, I, I've always had this dream of like doing like a cross country like road trip,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to take my kids to see things that they learn about, right?
Yep.
Like if right now they want to go places that I've been since they've been old enough to remember, right? Like I go to tech conferences and excuse me in SF, and they're like, "Daddy, I want to go to San Francisco. I want to go see this. I want to go do that. I want to go to Seattle." I'm like, why? Like you're 5 years old. Why are you telling me you want to go to Seattle? But it's just taking them to experience little things. Like they really want to go see the Space Needle in person. But also they want to go and see the redwood trees in California. So taking them to see stuff like that. But also, I didn't really have the chance to do a lot of international travel. And so I still want to do that, but now it's different. I want to take my kids to go see that stuff. Like I want them to experience those things that I didn't get to experience. So when they learn about something in school and they're studying history, it's like, all right, cool. Like let's plan a trip next summer. We're gonna go see that in person, right? You're gonna go see where this thing happened. And so hopefully being able to do that. Those are the kinds of things that I want to do. A lot of people want to go to places where they can go sit on the beach and do all that. Like that's cool, but it's kind of cliche. I want to go have a really good experience somewhere. There's always time to chill and relax and do whatever. But I want to be able to have those good like tangible experiences that my kids are going to be able to take something away from it.
Yeah. Have you this year, since it's 2020 and like kids are in school and having to adopt new routines, have you had to adopt anything for self-care for yourself or for them, to just maintain sanity and kind of set a precedent for like what's necessary in order for us in this household to thrive. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for them, they were doing like digital schooling, but that was kind of a mess, and we ended up just homeschooling. We pulled them out of school and homeschooled, but we also had a baby in January,
Mm,
so that kind of threw a whole another
yeah,
element into that. And that's also been different because he's had a different experience growing up than our other kids did. Because one, there are two older children there,
yeah,
um, but he's also had at least four people around him all day, every day, for his entire life. So he requires a lot more attention just because he's used to it. Um, but for the kids, it's making sure that they have more of a variety of activities. So trying to get them out of the house more, not just letting them sit in front of the screen. Like even if they're doing like ABC Mouse or they're reading or whatever, like let's go over here and like do some sort of like art project or something. Which they've actually been good about doing that on their own. But also making sure that we try to keep just let them continue to be kids and not have to worry about things, right? Like we try to make sure anytime we're watching the news or something like that, they're not around or they can't hear it. Um, because even just the other day, my son was like, "Dad, can we watch the news about the coronavirus vaccine?" And I mean, like he's 6 years old, right? Like I don't want you thinking about this right now, you know. Um, but that's for them, but for us, just making sure we're having that time to disconnect again, just from the world, from life, from work, from responsibilities, and just not going crazy, right? Just doing the same thing over and over again. um it's been great for us that my dad actually moved out here, so he's about 10 minutes away from us. um and so we've been able to see him more often. He's been able to be around family. But he's also, giving us breaks, like we bring the kids over and,
major keys.
like our anniversary, like we couldn't really do anything. So we went and got some food. We were gonna go and then just like sit in the park and have dinner just alone. Of course we got to the park and there's a million people there, and
Oh
like
man,
so we ended up just sitting in the car and eating dinner. But it was still good to just have that time just to ourselves. Like the kids aren't there. We're away from the house. We're just a change of scenery. So just doing that and, um, you know, just again, just trying to break up the routine and the monotony of every day is really been beneficial. Um, I think also connecting more with friends and family and stuff like that. Um, people that I talk to my friends every day on like GroupMe, right? That's our primary means of interaction. But during the pandemic, we've been on Zoom and stuff like that a lot, and playing games or just goofing off or whatever. But um, even that's been good. Just having that release again, just something different, something to break up the day. So
yeah. Silver lining to me, at least, a little bit is that we've found a way to be a little bit more human this year. Um,
mhm.
and like the stresses and the pressures of work or this capitalistic society or all these things that are set as expectations have over years like dehumanized us and turned us into robots that don't
And
take care of each other or take care of ourselves as good as we could. So I have appreciated that this year has been like a little bit of a reset. And just like you, man, I've seen a lot more people, their faces and in person, and just gotten to sit down and have the blessing to just catch up and um, just do life. It's virtual, but it's better than texting
yeah,
five people on a group and never having a chance to hear their voice or like see their face. So I'm totally with you
yeah.
there.
It's funny you mention that because it's been weird seeing the things that have changed, especially like in the workplace.
Mhm.
Um, And it's crazy it took a global pandemic for this to happen, but it's like now there's more of a focus on just being human and treating people as humans and understanding, like, if we don't need to have a meeting, let's not have a meeting because people got enough stuff going on, and people are stressed out, or being more understanding and flexible with people that have things going on outside of work, parents dealing with kids at home, or people that have older family members that live with them that they're taking care of, or people, taking care of family members that contracted the virus. And having that understanding and adjusting the way we work. And it's really all about just compassion and understanding, what people are going through. And it's like, why have we not been doing this the entire time?
Yeah. I'm hoping that, as most of us have had to either be near teaching our own kids or like actually be teaching our own kids. I've been asking this to myself for a long time, like, why don't we pay teachers more in this country? And I'm hoping that coming out of this period where everybody has seen how hard it is to like educate children and like
Yeah.
herd the cats and do all the things that um, I might even put it on LinkedIn. Like, can we like start a petition to like pay all teachers in the world or at least the US a little bit more because they are the like low key, real MVPs of this whole season in my eyes.
Yeah, I think it should be a requirement for everyone to have to teach one class at some point in their lives.
Mhm.
Because I've had to, like, I've done some like workshops and classes and stuff like that, and it is hard. It
Yeah.
is it is a tough job, and they definitely deserve to be paid a lot more.
Yeah. So if you're a teacher watching this, know that you heard it from Tony and Brandon. Like we are standing with y'all and we will do what we got to do in order to put some visibility on this particular subject. Um, I know we got about 5 more minutes here. Man, I appreciate you being able to come through and like have this kind of conversation with us. And maybe for the last couple of minutes, we'll just riff on, words to your younger self, or for folks that are wanting to break into technology or who might be going to college in a different way, this fall or next year. And then even maybe the elder who has had technology happen to them and their lives are a lot different than what they imagined. Maybe a couple, two or three parting words that you would say to those different kinds of populations who might be watching this episode of Green Room here, and then I'll close it out.
Yeah, definitely, man. We it's come up a few times in this conversation, and kind of the one of the focal points of the community college program is just find your community, and connect with those people, and don't ever be afraid to ask for help.
Mhm.
um, don't try to do this on your own. It is not easy. um, the work itself is probably not the most difficult part of this journey. Just being in this space and thriving in this space is a challenge, and it's stressful at times, and you need support. You need people around you to help you through that. Um, but also, there's a lot of benefit to it, and if it's something that you want to do, that you're interested in, keep going, keep doing it, push through it. It's going to feel impossible at times. It is not impossible. We are not doing brain surgery. It's not rocket science, unless you work at SpaceX, where it's literally rocket science. Um, but it's accessible. Like, you can do it. And just, always give back. Like, there are going to be people that you'll see people going down the path that you went down, and you'll see people asking the same questions and making going down this path where they're going to make the same mistakes. You should feel a responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. If there's somebody that you can help, somebody that you can just share your story with and your experiences, and make that path easier for them. It's going to be better for everybody, for the whole community, if that path is more accessible and easier and less bumpy for more people to travel, then you will see more people that want to travel that road. So
Yeah. And to add a little bit to that, you belong in these spaces and places, to the people that are watching this, and the skills that you have that you might even not understand that you have are around code switching and having different lingual skills to be able to relate to different types of people, um, that work ethic and that hustle. You might be watching this and your mom or dad has 2 or 3 jobs and they're pulling things together to make it, good for your family. There are things that we live through as maybe minority communities and Black and brown people that we might not necessarily think are strengths, but they actually make us more resilient and they make us assets to lots of these opportunities and lots of the things that we're talking about in this conversation. So don't discount yourself. Reach out to either of us if you've got questions about how to navigate things and curate and create your path to the thing that you want to get to. But yeah, we appreciate everybody's eyeballs and ears for this episode of the Green Room. Brother Tony, man, I appreciate you making some time for this. It's super important to me, and I could hear your passion around this too. So thank you for making time.
I'm honored to be here talking to you, man. I am like really like I was talking to some friends back from high school the other day. We were talking about you specifically and just like how proud we are of like everything you've done in this space and what you're doing for the community right now, man. So definitely proud of you, man. And like I said, I'm always happy to have a conversation to do whatever I can to help. So
Amen. All right, we'll leave it at that, man. Have a great rest of the holiday season. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Stay safe and sane out there. And yeah, we'll keep it moving into 2021. And I'll check with you in a couple of weeks, man.
all right, man. Take care.
All right, thanks, bro.
Peace.